Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Harold Katzman. I am in my 6th block at Kendall. So for my interview, I talked to my old executive chef, who is the executive chef at Bar Roma in Chicago's Andersonville neighborhood. His name is Fred Ramos. Prior to Bar Roma, he was the executive chef at Angelina's in Wrigleyville, and prior to that, he also attended Kendall College. So I worked for Chef Fred for about 8 months prior to coming to Kendall, and when he told me that I should check the school out, I went and did a tour. So it was nice. It was nice of him to chat with me about this. So the first thing I asked him is, what are the most difficult positions to fill in his restaurant? And he told me that it's about a 50-50 split between the front of the house and the back of the house. He said he's always looking for bussers and waiters, but he is always at least looking for one cook as well, and there's about 5 cooks in the kitchen there on a night. So that's just a constant aspect of his job. After that, I asked him how important human resources is in Bar Roma, and he essentially said very important. For one thing, when disciplining employees, there needs to be a paper trail so that people can't come back and either sue the restaurant or seek some sort of back compensation. So leaving a paper trail in terms of human resources is important, but also just babysitting the staff and making sure that everybody is getting along and nobody is doing anything inappropriate or unprofessional. So essentially avoiding legal disputes and anything that could be costly for the restaurant. And in terms of who does the human resources, it is essentially him and then the owner, and they are just kind of that is the human resources department. So I asked him what has worked well in the past for training new staff members. And essentially his answer was just to pair people off with more seasoned employees, and he does that for a few reasons. First of all, he doesn't have time to train everybody in different aspects of the restaurant. So for front of house people, he pairs with managers, and for back of house people, for new cooks, he pairs them off with sous chefs. And with cooks, he also mentioned that he doesn't actually that there is limited space, which prevents him from training new employees in the kitchen during service. So in order to cut down on chaos and use space effectively, he pairs new cooks off with sous chefs. I asked him what his process is for dealing with unmotivated employees, and he essentially just said he talks to them and figures out what's going on in their lives, and essentially be understanding but not allow that whatever's going on to be brought into the restaurant. So following that, I asked him what his personal management philosophy was, and he simply just said lead by example. He told a story of when he was at Kendall about a chef that wouldn't ever ask anybody to do something they wouldn't do themselves, to essentially just be a hands-on leader, and always let your employees know that you're really part of the staff. So following that, I asked him what the most challenging parts of being the executive chef at Bar Roma is, and he had a few things to say. First of all, coming up with new specials on a regular basis and just being creative to bring people back. Also, coming up with new revenue ideas, doing specials in terms of happy hours and champagne brunches and all these different things they do to try and get people in at different times and to diversify outside of just the dinner rushes. So new specials and menu development is a constant thing, and just the other thing he mentioned is just the consistency in terms of staying organized and staying clean and all these good habits that go into a good restaurant. So that's a constant challenge. And he went on to mention something interesting that about consistency, that there is really just no breaks in terms of this industry, and that it doesn't matter if you took a vacation or had a Labor Day party or whatever it might be. Deliveries keep coming, customers have expectations don't change, hopefully at least, and you just need to maintain that at all times and just be on top of it. The other thing he mentioned in terms of most challenging aspects is of management is that he can no longer be buddy-buddy with the staff. In order for him to be a effective disciplinarian, essentially when he has to be, he can't spend the rest of the time being too buddy-buddy with the staff, and also in order to avoid showing favoritism when stressful times come around. And the last thing he mentioned is not too surprising, but he mentioned when cooks don't show up and he fills in as a line cook is one of the most challenging parts of being the executive chef, because it comes down to him to get the food out, and if someone doesn't show up, which I think we've all done, it really hits him hard, and it's a pretty challenging difficulty for anybody after 25, pretty much. That's pretty much it. I had a brief conversation with him the other day, and just like to say thank you to Chef Ramos for speaking with me about this project, and it was interesting to hear his responses.